everyone. Firstly, I want to introduce myself and member groups. My name is Palupi Handayani and my study number is 8320200169, and my member group is Olivia Fakhrotunnida with a study number 8320200149 and Putri Mentari with study number 8320200167. We are from Philosophy Education Class D, and in this occasion we will doing presentation about chapter 2, Does Education Need Philosophy? And we will start from me. I will doing presentation about introduction and recent history of philosophy in educational studies. Introduction. 30 or more years ago, philosophy was an essential and much needed component in the education of teachers. Now it is no longer regarded as such. Future teachers, more often than not, are prepared for their professional life without any reference to the philosophical thinking about education, its aim and purpose, its content or its link with the wider preoccupation of society, which has been conducted and argued about over the centuries. But why this happened is itself worthy of philosophical reflection. Today, with a few admirable exceptions, there is a little room for the critical discussion of ideas, whether philosophical or sociological, which often unconsciously underpin educational practice. Teachers are trained to deliver the curriculum. They are assessed on their effectiveness. Their training teaches them to reach the target set by others. There is no time and little systematic encouragement to question what they are instructed to deliver or the mode by which it may be delivered most effectively. The second is about recent history of philosophy in educational studies. The early 1960s saw the creation in Britain of a special education degree, the BEd, which could be taken at honors level. To be an honors degree, it had to be academically respectable. That respectability could be achieved only if the prevailing theory of education was replaced by systematic studies in the so-called foundation discipline. Posts were created in the philosophy of education in most, if not all, of the many colleges of education under the academic wings of University Institute of Education. At the same time, the dominant mode of philosophizing within university was that of conceptual analysis. The class and discipline attention to the meaning of the key and often conceptual concept as this were revealed in the different usage of particular words. Through a closer and systematic examination of language, one may contribute to the solution of problems which often arise from the bewitchment of intelligence by the unreflective use of language. The philosophy of education examines such logically interrelated concepts as education, indoctrination, teaching, learning, curriculum subject, and moral development.
The next point is novelty review. First, as a review, it aims to give an account of the present and changing 14 to 19 system, its achievements and its failures, the policies which shape it, and the practices embody or do not embody those policies, the relationship of the system to the wider needs of society, and the progression from it to higher education, further training and employment. But already there are problems which enter into philosophical territory. The novelty review, therefore, has started with question: what counts as an educated to 19 years old in this day and age? Second, the comprehensiveness review is based on the assumption that the different aspects of the 14 to 19, namely the quality of learning, its assessment, the curriculum, and the framework of qualification, the choices available, and the guidance given, the different providers of formal learning, and the opportunities for informal learning, the funding arrangement of the system and the progression routes through it, the economic needs, and the level of training required to meet those needs, all interrelate. Third, the review seeks to be independent, but independent of what? Certainly it is independent government, and indeed frequently challenges the government's account of educational aim and performance. The philosopher Karl Popper argues that there are no sure foundation on which indisputable conclusion can be drawn. But the conclusion to be drawn from this position is not total skepticism. This is the most significant aspect of philosophy, which needs to permit educational thinking the clarification of what one means with sufficient clarity that others will know what would count as evidence against that is said. Critical attitude can be subversive, and that is one reason why philosophy might be unpopular in the training and further professional development of teachers. The next point is doing philosophy. Philosophy itself is a contested concept by contested point to the fact that the meaning is not agreed, that the consequent disagreement cannot, that the differences in the meaning reflect wider and deeper disagreements, often of an ethical nature. One difficulty with an educational review is that education itself is one such concept. What counts as being human and thus to grow as human being? What does it mean to say that such a human being can act freely and be held responsible for their action? In what sense might a collection of human beings constitute a community? Those are perennial questions of philosophy. But they are at the same time interwoven with the account and decision with education, and thus within the concern of the novel review. The next point is educational aims. Educational aims, any educational system is, by definition, concerned with the promotion of learning, but of the infinite range of things which could be learned. Only certain kinds are selected, for example, in the national curriculum. The novel review has been critical of the language drawn from management and business, through which educational activities are increasingly described and evaluated and emphasized on economy-related skills and enterprise, the reduction of aims to measurable targets, the identification of performance indicators as a basis for audit, to the perception of the curriculum as something to be delivered rather than taught, and the classification of costs in research as efficiency gains. The review, therefore, is doing two things that are relevant. First, it is seeing how the shifting language of educational is affecting the understanding of learning and its assessment, the concept of standards and the teaching, the content of the curriculum, and the search of authority for decision makers within the educational system. Without philosophical critique, this shifting language goes undetected, as does its improvising impact upon educational practice. Second, the novel review has started with the question what counts as an educational 20 years old In this day constantly returns an age, and such a question takes us into the central question of ethics.
Next is culture and community. We talk descriptively of youth culture, working class culture, or even king's culture. Culture in this descriptive sense would capture the background social influence upon how people think and find the value in things in relationship which might not be explicitly recognized by the people who participate within that culture. On the other hand, we talk evaluatively of the culture person or of culture event. Culture in this sense embodies socially approved ways of thinking, appreciating, and valuing. The importance of the concept and its implication for education as a preparation for living in the community is emphasized by many educational thinkers and philosophers. Between culture and living together harmoniously and productively seems central to education and for the context in which each can learn from and contribute to the understanding of others. Therefore, it is an important philosophical task to examine what it means to live in community and to thereby share and to develop a common culture with emphasize what persons they have in common, which while respecting much cherished differences. Achievement words with its meaning point to certain standards which have been met and those standards are internal to the subject matter with each being learned. Education here is to make sense inevitably involves philosophical work in the theory of knowledge or epistemology. Epistemology, or nature of knowledge claim are analyzed critically. Failure to engage in such philosophical thing results in the reduction of learning to the ability to memorize and to repeat prepositions or formulae without the deeper understanding of a particular way of knowing. Teaching is the active intention to get someone to learn something and therefore requires first an understanding of how much the learner already understands or can do. Second, an understanding of that which the teacher wants the learner to grasp. The provision of teaching, therefore, is both a guardian of that accumulated wisdom and the means whereby it will be inherited by future generations. In that respect, it is a deeply moral undertaking ensuring the transmission of the best in our cultural inheritance relevant to personal and social development. The next is provision. We learn from experience as well as through the formal provision of education that has a concept with philosophical history. In alternatively, one might see all experience as already interpreted as they are accommodated within a mind which is already formed by previous experience and which is constantly adjusting its mode of anticipating future experience in the light of the present. For Dewi, therefore, education is this constant transformation of experience, and it is a job of the teacher being aware of the experiential understanding brought by the learner into school to help with that transformation to introduce the learner to the future experience which will extend the capacity of the learner to manage life more intelligently. The form of educational provision depends on how one understands the meaning and significance of the learner's experience. Conclusion: both educational policy and educational practice are understood and pursued through understandings embodied in the language we use. Therefore, what the language is to change our understanding that need to reflect systematically upon that language. There is a need to make explicit and to examine critically the meanings through which we understand the physical, social, and moral worlds we inhabit. So many of the key concepts through which we talk about education, about what it means to learn and understand, and about the links between the formal provision of education and the experience, prior or current, of the young learners. One aim one aim of Nufile review is to show the relevance of such philosophical reflections to understanding of the development and to pass from a piece of disguised nonsense to something that is patent nonsense. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.